You're listening to My Inner Teacher with Peter Sterios and Krystal Ariel. The answers you seek are within you.
Welcome, Tawny. This opportunity to talk to you is really kind of funny for me since I talked to you this morning, and we're like ships passing in the night at the moment. But would you do the honor of talking a little bit about what you're doing, other than being my wife, what you're doing professionally right now, and then maybe take it back a little bit to when you were younger? And the reason I'd like to kind of start with now and move back a little is I really want to create an environment for the listeners that you are this unique personality, this unique voice in the world. At what point did you recognize it? Like, at what age do you think you started to come into your own voice? And whether it was like in childhood or young adulthood, or did it take you until just recently to understand what that means?
The inner voice,
Yeah,
my inner voice.
that was speaking to you, guiding you into what
Yeah.
you're currently doing. Start
Yeah.
with what you're currently doing, because I'm sure everyone's curious.
Yeah. Well, just last month, I completed a 2.5 year program at Pacifica Graduate Institute here in Montecito, Central Coast of California. I'm studying counseling psychology with an emphasis in depth psychology. So, really looking at Jungian psychology and looking at the unconscious and bringing the unconscious to consciousness. So, what I'm doing right now is sitting with clients, practicing psychotherapy, and weaving in what I've done in the past 25 years, which is a movement teacher and a birth doula the last 15 years. So weaving in movement, weaving in what I've learned around people's relationship around pain and pleasure and creativity. I'm doing expressive arts therapy as well. But I like to say I'm wearing many hats. So I'm maybe primarily focused on psychotherapy at the moment and on the path towards licensure. But I'm also still a doula, attending births, welcoming babies into the world, welcoming mothers into the world, and fathers into this parenthood, motherhood. I'm also helping women postpartum with the journey of transformation that is that part of mothering. And a little bit of yoga. I have not taught much yoga in the last 2.5 years, but this summer I'm offering some yoga for a women's retreat. I'm also parenting, and I take that as a large psychic and somatic space. And I'm also, yes, your wife. And that is also, we've been married 17 years. And yeah, relationships are also a big priority. Yeah.
I also, when I first learned about you, because I went to your website after I found you on Instagram, and I was like, oh my God, she does women's circles. And that really drew me to you because of the way you, I guess, presented it. And it was just very beautiful and very feminine and very inviting. And I don't know if you're still doing those.
I'm not doing them publicly. So when Peter and I ran Embody, the yoga studio here in San Luis Obispo for around 8 years, I did them every new moon at our yoga studio. And it was something that felt so ancient, right? Circling, gathering, and still like somehow like a new technology for me. Like, growing up, I did have great relationships with girls, and like I played on a soccer team, and I felt like that was really a camaraderie and friendship. And but then when we sold the studio, I also needed a break, so I kind of stopped hosting public circles. But what did form was a group of, I think there's 8 of us now, of just a private women's group that we meet once a month. And yeah, and I did women's retreats for a while too, like camping retreats. And yeah, getting women together is something I really still adore, Krystal, and it's just been a little bit on the pause. But I think if I really like look back at like what led me to different chapters of my life and different avenues and stuff, gathering with women has always brought me to myself to have that reflection and safety and connection to blossom into me. And it's held a really wonderful space. And I love to hold that space for multi generations to come together too. I've done some mother daughter circles and grandmothers. And yeah, something so right about that. I love that you maybe recognize that and yeah, sunk into that.
Tawny, because I've supported those women retreats and helped you set up and then kind of cleared out and gave you, that privacy of the feminine, let's call it. I think it'd
Yeah.
be really, because I would stand as I was setting up and looking around at the environment that you were creating in the wild, in the Central Coast, Big Sur area, I want you to describe that. What was it about that land? What was it about, how you were drawn there to find it, or like, how did you find it? And then like, what was it that you think brought, because you had such big groups there. What was it that brought women to you there?
Well, Big Sur's always held a special place. It's why I moved to San Luis Obispo to be close to it. And it's where you and I met. It is a magical place. So I think I had put on my radar of like wanting, desirous of a way to connect in kind of more of a private place in nature versus like a public campground, which Big Sur does have ample amounts of that. And I wanted it to be affordable for women to get into nature and gather. Like it shouldn't be a luxury of a, $5,000 retreat, which there's plenty of those in Big Sur as well. But as something that just a lot of us are, working and mothers, and it's hard to get away. So I think I just put that out there. It was someone at our yoga studio at the time that knew that had a neighbor who had a daughter, had a property that was like open to maybe kind of a bunch of hippie women, like, connecting to the land. And I remember the day I went to just check it out and just felt like there was an alignment and a connection. And it really was such a huge gift to have a place nestled by the beach, private creekside, just slow down, amazing stars at night, fires. We did singing, we did getting naked in nature in the creeks, and the beach was even pretty private, so we could just jump in like mermaids. Yeah, it was really special. I think what brought people to it, Peter, was just like why many of us are drawn to nature and connection. It's just that maybe something felt so kind of like primal in a way, but also just like yearning for that return to nature type of thing. I would call them gather, and I still really love that name because I think that feels very ancient too, where, yeah, in this world of kind of isolation and I don't know, technology connection, but then like just the real physical connection of waking up with each other. And we would have one woman go around the campsites with a bell to wake everybody up or sing, like something just so, natural about that I think we all yearn for or dream for. And we really co-created. It wasn't, I mean, I held the space. I was the facilitator and the main organizer and made the retreats quite affordable, but I had a lot of sisters making the teas or offering some movement or offering sweat lodge or a singing circle or a self-care, spa by the creek side. It was a collaborative community. And it was really sad when we had a bunch of fires in Big Sur move through, and then we had a bunch of heavy rains move through, and this beloved property had a really bad flood slash mudslide damage to this location. And it's really beautiful. The family that lives there is making the best of that property and bringing it back to life. And I've heard some beautiful things. But yeah, that was a huge chapter. That I think was a place where I could practice an aspect of myself, like the wild feminine kind of was a big thing I explored there, getting out of like domestication of just being so housebound and trying to really feel like what it's like to be in the wild and start getting comfortable with like another part of myself. And I don't know, I bet that led me to also want to understand the psyche and kind of more of my human potential
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to just share something here that there's a certain I mean, men have gatherings, but there's something really so mystical about women gathering. And I used to think like, wow, they're so lucky to have this opportunity to just be free of all the stereotypes of what a woman is and just kind of go into the primal. And from a masculine point of view, I noticed a huge difference in your presence when you return from those experiences. And it was in that way a benefit to me because you being able to go out and be among this circle of women and then to come back and re-enter your ordinary life with such beauty and
Mm.
and power. And I mean, it's like you go away and you come back transformed in a way and much again from my personal perspective able to hold the crazy number of things you've been holding for the last 2.5 years with school, with parenting, with husbanding or spouse, sorry. And I'm in awe. I mean, I love the fact that this is an opportunity for me to see it firsthand, how powerful women can be when they're together.
Yes,
Yeah.
I need it. I need more of it, which
Mm.
is why I was so drawn to it when I saw it
Mm.
on your website, because I'm feeling that yearning. But I want
Mhm.
to ask you about the mother part, because this one's kind of big, and I'm just wondering, I've done a lot of work to mother myself, to
Yeah.
remother myself. And from
Mm.
your perspective of being someone that is in psychology and consciousness and mindfulness and all that stuff, I'm sure you've gone through that process while being a mother yourself. And so my question is, how much of being able to find your way, find the inner teacher, listen to the inner voice, involves remothering yourself?
Yeah. Um, how much of it? I think it's a huge part. I think having a loving presence towards ourself kind of probably, enhances our inner voice, or our clear, true inner voice. Or that's one of the voices. Like we can have that, self-critical voice. And I think catching it, I don't know, like I think catching how we're talking to ourselves, how we're parenting ourselves, what we're communicating to our own being, mindful of how we're communicating to our kiddos and everyone around us, and then mindful of how we're communicating to ourselves. And I think, yeah, you bring up a really cool point of like, well, how much of that helps us find our inner teacher? Where I think if we're just like overwhelmed and 80, 90% in some other head story, critique, I'm not good enough, whatever like the loop mental gymnastics kind of aggression is, then we're probably not able to really listen to, maybe that deeper, quieter, softer, truer aspect because I don't know, feels like we're up here in it instead of like down lower. So having some of that like authority, parental kind of boundary way of speaking to ourselves, that's like, you're doing a great job, Tawny. Like, keep it up and whatever I need at the moment probably would give me the confidence to actually hear what's more truer and present myself and be in a way that's aligned with my inner teacher or my inner voice.
Yeah.
How did you
Yeah.
did you have a mentor? Like, can you look back in your process of growing up, do you see someone in your family or someone that you were close to outside your family that kind of was a mentor for what it meant to be a mother, a powerful woman, et cetera, et cetera? Like, and if you didn't have that growing up, when did you recognize, at what point did you recognize that there are mentors for you? If it's not your own mother, is it like, maybe you could start there. Like, what was it that you felt you received from the mentor of your own birth mother? And then how does that translate to who you are now? And if you didn't kind of feel that inspiration from your birth mother, was there a mother figure in your life that you then saw, wow, that's the mentor that I'm looking for?
Well, I know the first question you asked, I didn't really answer around like when did I find like what maybe we're exploring this like inner voice and like did you find it as a kiddo um and then around like what was some of the ways that you know, did you have a mentor? And when you first said, did you have a mentor? What came to me first was like my body being my mentor. Um, and that was what I wanted to share in the first question that I didn't get to answer was like, I think listening to my body growing up, because I am a somatic learner and played really competitive soccer. And to do that competitive soccer, you have to have a relationship with what your body's capable of, how to navigate, you know, pushing through things, trainings. Yeah, I mean, I did track and cross country as well. And I felt like I could listen to my body is, I think, was my first mentor and my first way of finding what the inner teacher was like, it was my body communicating. It was my body communicating that after 17 years of competitive soccer, it was done. And even if my mind was like, well, I want to take these full ride soccer scholarships to universities or partial, I mean, I got quite a array of.
Hey, quick note. Peter's Inner Teacher Academy is launching soon. If this is resonating with you, head over to innerteacheracademy.com and grab a spot on the wait list. These trainings are intimate and space is limited. So if you want to be first in line, tap the link in the description below and sign up.
You can also see details about my 2025 retreats at some incredible locations around the world, like Iceland, Austria, California, and New Zealand. Attendance at these trainings will count towards in-person hours for the Inner Teacher Academy. And now let's get back to the magic.
Of enticing offerings, but my body was tired and I couldn't deny it. And I think the inner voice was maybe more of like my body for me than like a voice. It was like a guttural bone, like I'm fatigued. And if I keep going down that path, I know my body will lead to like, you know, anger, resentment for playing on a team. I didn't want to do that anymore. My body craved a different type of way of being. So I think that was my inner voice to at, you know, 16, 17 decide I'm not going to take this path that I'd worked pretty hard with, but had to like go deep to be like, no, that's not for me. And, you know, do the path uncharted, which was for me going to community college and trying to find out how else to move my body and what else I was into. And that's what, you know, led me to yoga and also what led me to like feel like I was horribly sick. And at the community college, I went and got antibiotics 8 times in 1 year for a tonsil infection. And it was my body there that was like, you need change. So I studied nutrition. It was again like my body saying something. So I studied nutrition, and that led me up here to San Luis Obispo, and then kind of, you know, some of it, the rest is history. But I think I've always followed my body. I think that's been more of the inner guide for me. But in terms of mentors, yeah, there's been mentors along the way, including my birth mother. I mean, she would bring us, the thing I think about the most is bringing us into wild nature and feeling safe and comfortable in that. And I think that was a guide for me to explore that part of my own being as having a wild aspect, as having a I think of the virgin forests and just like how they work and how they're in harmony and how there's just that and kind of trying to remember that that's within me too and that's within humanity. Um, yeah, I saw some mothers along the way. I mean, I was also a mom at 24, and not a lot of my friends were moms at that point. So I didn't have a lot of mentors. I don't know, other people like, reading books and having that kind of archetypal wanting to be like of a certain quality of mother, probably inspired me.
It's
I'm
quite a
curious,
sacrifice.
Peter,
Oh, go ahead.
before I just want to know, have you ever done work to remother yourself?
No, I've never really developed that awareness to say I need to be remothered. I grew up in such a all-American family, the kind of typical almost to the extreme of working dad, stay-at-home mom, a mom who appeared to be happy taking care of the kids, happy to be keeping a clean house, happy to be doing the laundry, and having just done that myself for the last 2.5 years while Tawny gets her degree. I'm finding that almost hard to believe that there are people out there that are wired to happiness, taking care of so many things to keep the family moving without time. I mean, it really was for me in this mothering of my daughter in a way while Tawny was at school, one of the most difficult things I've ever done. And it developed this new respect for all women who try to uh, retain identity of when they weren't a mother as they go through motherhood. And I would see that would be almost an impossible task. And yet maybe we're evolving, at least the society is evolving into this ability to see what it is mothers do for humanity. And I guess all species, but in particular this human species, where there's that creative person before motherhood, retaining some of that and recapturing that. To me, I've been impressed so much with Tawny's ability to keep an eye on those other things and have the patience to know that they'll be back sooner than later. And as far as my relationship to my mother, it was difficult as an adult because it was most of her identity to be the mother of children, and she couldn't quite understand it appeared she couldn't quite understand how to mother an adult. I think she didn't switch gears with the adulthood, and that obviously caused friction. And she developed Parkinson's disease in my late 20s, and then it kind of degenerated. Her quality of life suffered, and so that the time as I grew up, and men I think grow up slower than women. So like I would say that I didn't really understand what growing up meant until I hit 40. Like up until 40, I was pretty much just pretending to be a man. I didn't really understand manhood. And then this beautiful event came along to really anchor me in manhood, and that's called divorce. And so this existential crisis of true love, exploding and dissolving, that was this, okay, I can get angry, I can get depressed, but no, I have to kind of heal and move through and resurrect in a way. And that was that period for me that was 5 years maybe of work on myself, understanding. And I don't think I've talked about this in public before really, but I grew up in a family that with a father that worked 10-hour days 5 days a week. And on the weekends, he was kind of working around the house, but not available that much. And so I was learning how to be a boy and a man with females, basically. My mother and all my school teachers up until my junior year in high school were women. So all the people that I was learning from, were women, and trying to understand, what it is for a boy to grow up to be a man from females is not great. It's better than nothing. Having no parents, I'm sure that must be hard, but growing up with just a female perspective of what a man should be, it creates problems for men. And I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in other men. And now that I'm aware of it, it makes sense to me that these rituals that women have, men have rituals as well. Tribal cultures, helping boys become men with cuts, with literally, wilderness journeys, and leaving them to kind of take an overnight by themselves and try to survive that. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. It's just lost really in modern culture.
Yeah, that got brought up at school. We did a class on like threshold initiations and the importance of like our development as humans by going through different thresholds, or and I liked this kind of concept that emerged that women have like an innate threshold. Like we get our moon cycle, we have this internal kind of like thing we have to face, this like, monthly pain and emotion and hormones. And then, maybe giving birth is like this internal threshold that we have to like move through. And then men really have to create it externally. They don't have it like this like built in like rite of passage that we have in the female body, that they're often having to get together and do something external to like meet that same kind of pain that we can feel in having our menstrual cycle or giving birth, but they have to like create it externally, by doing something hard, like spending the night outside or going on a vision quest, or this hunting rites, talked about that. And yeah, it's a really interesting concept, and I think it's one that I've worked with women with, to see our menstrual cycle as a way of development, as a way of leaning into the body's innate way of challenging us to grow and be with our different aspects that get like stirred up on that natural hormonal cycle that we have, and to let that wisdom of it, I mean, it's so ancient and it's so a part of nature. Like the fact that our fertility is in sync with the lunar cycles, that like we have this internal nature is like such a beautiful vision that I like, and want to support like our daughter at seeing that power, seeing that nature. But in the beginning, or like maybe like 20 years ago, when I was kind of sinking into what it meant to be in the female body and how to like lean into the experience fully, there was so much resistance of like, culture too, like, oh, she's on her period, that's when she goes crazy, instead of going, oh, well, that's when her right brain and her left brain are more entrained. And so there is more intuition and there is more understanding. And then there's just like, oh, she's on her period, like take a pill, shove something up there, let's pretend it's not happening. Where if we're doing that, then we're really like suppressing, repressing a part of our natural being, as messy as it is. But I think in our culture, it's like, let's just not go there, which I think is a shame, to your point, Peter, because if we don't go there, like it's like for you not having that kind of masculine mentorship, then it does halt our development, or you have to create it, for yourself later in life. And I've loved hearing stories of how you joined Mankind Project after the divorce and really let that divorce be an initiation and a threshold crossing of stepping into who you were meant to be and who you maybe couldn't have become from the childhood you had, and needed this kind of other thing. And Carl Jung would say life starts at 40, everything else before that is just research. And I really feel that, to answer your first question, that like I think I just found my voice. I'm 42 and I think now it's my voice. I mean, I think I was hearing whispers of my body guiding me, but I think it's only in that 40 decade where you've got enough experience in history and material to go, oh, okay, I've seen enough, I've felt enough. Now I can trust something and have a little maybe more confidence or more connection to that's you, that inner guide and that inner voice, that's you. It's not culture. Like I've examined what culture has wanted me to become and challenged it, and then now kind of know, what's really mine here.
Exactly. Yeah. I really love this conversation because up until now, we've spoken about the inner teacher as this universal human experience. But this is the first time that we split it into like, how does it come about for women versus men? And that maybe it is different because of the things that we need. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I there's this knowledge that Jungian psychology has accumulated during his life and then after he passed that continues to develop in these institutions like Pacifica. And what I would 100% agree, Tawny, that when you turn 40, that as you started to feel into this decade of the 40s, I noticed emotionally a difference. And it was almost like you started to see some of the triggers or some of the patterns that were ancestral that maybe spilled down generation until yours from your family line. Or maybe it was just a cultural program, societal program of expectations of a woman with a career and a mother and a self-care, a life, blah blah blah. Your patience with relationship with me has grown. And I did, this is kind of a compliment. Hopefully you'll see it this way.
Kind of. It's
is
kind of a
is
compliment.
that this
Maybe.
no, this is important. And I told myself I
Maybe.
wasn't going to talk about relationship, and here we go. Um, this ability for you to recognize that men and women are different. That and as obvious as that sounds, but emotionally, that men are, say, come into this world with kind of a archetypal, different types of archetypes, but generally masculine, that have certain traits. And these traits are, I don't know, you could call it like a subconscious program. It's there. Do we want to change it? Is it serving us in this lifetime to hold on to that program? Or is that program outlived itself and it's ready for a reboot, or an update? And this ability for you to, first of all, see that I'm still, even at my age, evolving, growing. I find myself a lot still surrounded by intelligent women like the both of you that have perspective to me, because I love the relationship between men and women. I can't imagine moving through life without it. And I'm just trying to honor your ability to have patience for me, make space for my evolution, has, from my perspective, created more trust and more freedom and more space to just witness relationship with you. And even the ups and downs, like this is an up moment where we can discuss things with kind of calmness and hold like curiosity towards evolution into emotional states. But ultimately, this inner journey, the commonality between men and women going to the inner journey is the decision or the recognition to turn inward. I think women turn inward earlier than men. I think men are programmed to like go out into the world and conquer. And it takes, a lifetime, literally up until the 40s or maybe even the 50s to kind of turn more authentically inward.
Mhm.
So yeah, that to me is the difference,
Yeah.
Krystal, between, men and women. I think if we just start a little later, but the similarity is that it's a choice to look inside yourself. It's even more than that. It's a choice to return to the center of yourself. What is in
Absolutely.
the center of yourself? And ironically, the heart is the center. So the heart and the gut are these two powerful places for a man and a woman, but I'm speaking now as a man, that we're not equipped very well as children to head into the heart space. Or head into the gut space, the lower center.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
women seem to have an advantage there. I think it starts really early for women.
I I think that one, like our physiology differences of like bleeding and how our brain changes during that time to be more reflective and introspective. If we're given the quiet space and the tending, to allow ourselves to be with our bodies in that way and do that inner work. Um, but I also think, like to your point, it is such a choice if we want to turn inward. And I do think the first half of life is really external. Like there is pressure to, become the professional or become the mom or do the thing. And then like the second half of life is a more of an internal journey. And I think both you and I have, kind of turned that corner in these maybe last 5 years of like, we're both on an internal journey and caring and tending to our inner world, maybe in a deeper place than we were when we were, raising a young child or a baby. But now we're having a little more time to do that internal work. And it's beautiful when both partners are doing that and can stay together, and doing that inner work enhances the relationship. Um, I think you're also speaking to, Peter, though, the collective kind of story that we're all swimming in, which in the West largely is like not to be introspective and like, especially as a man, like to not feel or to, push the emotions down or, not cry or all that kind of thing that I do think is changing, but definitely wasn't when you were a kiddo. Like you weren't, in the environment to have more of that. But it's been beautiful to watch you cultivate that in the second half of your life. And I would dare say that I think some of that is what Krystal's speaking of like inner mothering or inner fathering or inner parenting, of like, renegotiating some of those older stories. And I've seen you, course correct, habit change, or like shift patterns. And I think that is part of the inner parenting where you're like, all right, I know better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to create some other opportunity because that way wasn't working. And I think that is what parents do, is like we try to, catch that for ourselves. And I think, yeah, maybe that is one of the reasons you and I are, in a good place, is like we're both inner parenting ourselves. And I think that creates a wholer human.
Hmm. And to that point, like when you mention men not being allowed to cry or given permission to cry or express their feminine energy, like beyond the physical male and female within us, we have those energies that coexist. And for a long time, I denied the masculine energies within myself because I felt pressured to just be a girly girl and just look pretty all the time, and like be feminine.
Yeah.
But there is this
Yeah.
other aspect of me that is
Yeah.
more masculine. And when I can embrace that, I feel more whole. So
Right.
those parts within
Beautiful.
us.
Totally. Yeah. Anima and animus is what like the Jungians would call. And I feel that totally too, Krystal. Well, I think I started more as a tomboy. So, and I'm playing soccer and athletic and warrior, like, that was at a time in football, soccer history where we would be doing a lot of headers to the ball. Like, it was fierce. Like now when our daughter played, it was like, don't do that. Like the brain is too precious to take a punt ball from a keeper onto your head. But here I was like, like very masculine, and felt like I think some of the work I did later in life, like maybe around the 20s when I was like women's circles and get in touch with my feminine was because I went from such a masculine to a feminine. And I think even now I'm like kind of returning into more of a masculine, like going to grad school and like working as hard as I am. Like I feel like I'm flexing this muscle of determination, of external like presenting. I'm like helping a lot of people. I'm kind of like in a doing masculine place where staying at home with Athena and teaching yoga, was a period of a little bit more like feminine, nurturing home life. But I love this idea of like we want to go in and out of like oscillating between involving the feminine inside aspect of ourselves, whether we're male or female, and then developing the masculine traits and aspects of ourselves and becoming whole, that we have both of those energies, that both are important, that both bring qualities and evoke wholeness in us, and to not, favor one, but to be able to flex both sides of our psyche and our body. Like I know it's important. Like I just started lifting weights and like getting stronger in like that physical way, and it's like, wow, like my body can have this like masculine strength that it's actually doing something for my psyche needs it too. Like I love this concept. It's a Jungian concept, or maybe it's even older than that, like the alchemist of like as above, so below. That like what we can do in our physical body, like let's say like below the head, like as above, so below. So if we can build our strength in our body, we can build our flexibility, our softening, our surrendering, then like maybe our psyche can do it too. But letting both of those things happen, like have the strength psychically, physically. So I really have a lot of respect for the body as being one way to explore those feminine and masculine aspects, through different types of movement, and giving yourself permission to explore different types of movement that would be even like what you're not used to, like going from athletic and then going through soft form yogic movements, or free form dance, or authentic expression, to lifting weights, to like just letting the body have all these different, climbing walls, rivers, because it's also going to inform what we can do psychically, what we can do with our psychology. Can we build up strength to our thinking? Can we surrender thoughts and let go? Like I really love this concept of the importance of both. Yeah, as above, so below, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Like, how far can we jump into the ocean and dive deep? And that might mean how we can dive deep into our own unconscious, because we're challenging our body to do something that is scary. But and so it is as we go to places in our own psyche. Can we kind of trust that, oh, well, I did that scary thing in my body and I could get out of it? It kind of gives us some proof. It gives us a piece of who we really are in this body. Yeah, that's been really helpful for me. I wrote my thesis on rituals and the power of rituals, rituals of movement, nature, and art to help us psychically transform. Because if our bodies can do it, our minds can do it. And giving ourselves windows of ritual to practice being that we are desirous to become, as we're all on this journey of becoming. And I'm still in awe of like what rituals can do. Rituals of art, nature, and movement
Can you
are so
share?
ancient.
Can you share some of them? Because I watch you create these, and I think it'd be really beautiful to share what some of the rituals that you do, and get into as much detail as you feel comfortable sharing, with art, with dance, with nature, with, because I just have enjoyed
Yeah.
watching from afar.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would encourage any listener that's like, oh, how do I engage with ritual, is like first to trust our own abilities to create for ourselves something, and what we're seeking. It might be like, I'm holding a lot of tension in my body and I'm going to do a ritual of shaking and do it under a tree, a fall tree that's, losing its leaves. And I'm just going to let nature be the master teacher of like how to shake and let go of tension that I'm holding or a story I'm holding. So letting our inner nature and the outer nature maybe be the guide is what I would say. Because I think the things that I've leaned into ritual for have been so personal. But one I could share that I wrote about in the thesis was how scary it was for me to write a thesis and how much I was procrastinating, which Peter saw. And I don't know
The
how
house got
torturous
really
it was.
clean. The house got really clean during those procrastinations because she'd get out the vacuum and she'd vacuum the house. And
I'd rather
That's
clean
awesome.
than write. But I think that was a ritual too, and I think it's totally legit. And science has also shown like cleaning something can actually, support the psyche to feel ready for something. So yes, there was that. But I was really stuck, and so I decided I wanted to do a ritual around feeling stuck about it. And what I did, I mean, I don't know. I just trusted where I was going and I wanted my body to be involved with it. And so I said, I mean, I've been so, working with the womb and the creative energy of the female body and creating life. I knew that I wanted to create a thesis and kind of was imagining it, feeling it as a creation, like a little baby, a 70-page thing that I wanted to offer, myself, but also to the world, that maybe rituals could support people and people I work with in therapy and in movement. And so I just kind of decided to do a little like, okay, I'm going to like open myself. I consent to becoming pregnant with a thesis. Like I just put my hands on my womb and I was like, are you ready? I mean, I remember saying this before we decided to have our sweet daughter Athena, like, womb, are you ready for this? And I just kind of said that. I just went in and I was scared and I was like, okay, I want to commit to these months of tending this creative energy, just like we would, with a living creative thing, like really just caring for it. And that was a ritual I did. And I put a big black stone and a big white stone together to represent like the masculine and the feminine, and that my thesis might represent both, that it might have elements of structure or what I associate with masculine, like structure, containment, and then it might have some of the feminine free flow. And I put those and I looked at it and I was like, all right, I'm putting this together. I'm feeling this in my body. And I just said yes. And I went through a labyrinth walk and kind of did some mantra around I'm open, I'm ready, and I'm like let it move through my system and let creation, be grown. I mean, that was kind of goofy talking about it, but in the moments of it, it felt profound. It felt like I was committing to my body. I was committing to a practice. I was saying yes. I was honoring the fear. It was, facing the challenge of it and said, all right, I'm going to go through this. This is something I'm going to do. And, I did it. But yeah,
Wow.
I think I learned from Daria Halprin, life art process. I really loved that, which both you and I have done a little bit of that, but that movement practice, and then to take a movement and draw or create some kind of art from what your movement inspired. So I remember one time I did one movement and then just felt like I just kept wanting to move like a snake. So then I drew a snake and just let that be part of the ritual around like letting our bodies create something. We're such consumers. And so, but to be creators, to then like let our little ritual, put some flowers together on the ground and be like, this is art, this is creation, this is my creativity. And I'm honoring that I can create something. Could be as simple as that. I mean, I think these rituals need to be simple and with the ingredients that we have around us, and kind of empower us that that's enough. We don't need more to do these rituals. We need our own kind of inner voice and trust in the process, though, too. Like, I think some people would be like, oh, I don't know, like maybe they wouldn't believe it. But I think we have to like believe in ourselves in the ritual. I think that's an ingredient to be like, this matters. Like, this is you honoring and committing to something that's important in your life and giving it space.
Yeah. It makes me think of being a kid. Like when you're a kid, you
Yeah.
imagine all kinds of things and you're not worried
Yeah.
about looking stupid or if people believe it or not. You believe it. And you're going to go out there and
Yeah.
pick some leaves, put it in a bowl with some dirt, make a salad, bring it home to your mom and say, I made you this. And she's like, oh, thank you.
You did that?
Right.
Yeah, I did
Totally. Yes, Athena did that. Like dirt soup. Like, yes, I think that is it, Krystal. And I think we need to play. And I know like that did get brought up in my thesis because I did an aspect on pleasure and play and being in that mindset that is a very creative mindset is important for us. And we do deny it a lot, pleasure and play, and we're scared of it and we don't want to give it as much value as it deserves.
What do you think about pleasure and play for the My Inner Teacher, Peter?
I
Oh,
think
for me?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the play is, I'm all about play. That's one of the reasons that what I teach is levity yoga. This idea that levity is a universal principle. It's inherent in our things that we do physically. It's inherent in the things that we do psychologically and emotionally. And I've looked at it from, I mean, growing up, the kind of expression that I got is from my parents when I was being silly is, when are you going to grow up? You know, like, what's wrong with you? When are you going to grow up? And unfortunately for them, I'm still not grown up on that level. I still seek out these opportunities to be a dork, literally. And why? It makes me feel good. It's, I'm sorry, sometimes it upsets the people around me that I'm being kind of silly, but it's just this most delightful, lighthearted space that I see it in others and it touches me. You know, when I see other people being silly and goofy and playful, it's as if I was experiencing it, you know, myself. And this I love. I think it's unique. I mean, I think I see it in dolphins. Dolphins seem to be goofy a lot and play. So I don't think it's just a human quality to have this lightheartedness. I think it's out there. And I I think that's, I forget who I was talking to recently. Like, one of the worst things that you can be called is normal. You know, like, who wants that as an adjective? You're normal. You know, like, I don't want to be normal ever. I want to kind of step into this opportunity of uniqueness and silliness and joyfulness. And yeah, it's part of yoga. It's, if you look at the science between, you know, within the science of humor, there are all sorts of biological advantages when you have a good sense of humor and when you appreciate humor, because it changes your brainwave activity. It changes the secretion of hormones in your body. Your parasympathetic nervous system channel opens. Everything is more positive when you're laughing. So
Puts all the
yeah.
wrinkles in the right places.
And it puts the wrinkles in the right places. Exactly. It is, you know, like, as I look at my 70th birthday next year and I'm thinking, okay, what is really different about my experience of life at 70? And there's wisdom that I've accumulated that I appreciate. There's this patience that I have because I was more impulsive when I was younger. But the things that haven't changed at this point is still this goofiness, this silliness, this quick to laugh at myself. I'm very quick to laugh at myself. And I think I've been blessed with that. I've never really taken myself that serious, even though I've had moments of serious in my life. But no, it's been a gift and one I'm grateful for.
Well, this has been really, really enriching for me. I don't know, how was it good for you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's fun.
Well, I think we can end here unless, Peter, you have another question you want to ask, or Tawny, there's something else you want to say?
I have one thing to say, which is the plasticity of our format here with the inner teacher. You know, like we have this thread that's running through all these conversations we're having with people. This one is a little more personal because the conversation is with my wife. And I appreciate the way this conversation transpired in terms of sharing with others in relationship some of the things that we've experienced that you may find useful in your relationships. So Krystal, thank you for like being our mediator almost in this conversation, although it didn't really need mediating. I'm really happy.
Me too. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Tawny, for being our guest today.
Yeah, thanks for including me on your podcast and conversation around the inner teacher.
That's it for this episode. Be well and stay open to the teacher within. If you've enjoyed our time together, follow or subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming chats you don't want to miss.